Hello, Andrew, Ricky, and welcome to Business Spotlight. Thanks for making the time to come on board.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. So, Ricky, let's start off with tell us a bit about yourself and about your business.
My name is Ricky Hayes, and my business is Debutify. I run a software company. We provide a theme subscription to customers as well as a review app. So we sort of help e-commerce business owners around the world with their e-commerce software solution to help sort of streamline and support their day-to-day of their business.
So you say around the world. What's your geographic area?
Predominantly, a lot of our customers are from the US. Most of our customers are from the top 5 countries, being US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and United Kingdom. We do have customers in the European region as well, but predominantly most of our geographic is in the US. Generally, 25 to 44-year-old men and women that are using Shopify as their e-commerce platform.
Right. So how long have you been in business?
Now about 3 years. So 3 years sort of since started the business and progressively sort of grown it from there.
And how did you get into this type of business, Ricky?
That's a great question. So I come from an IT background, so I've always been into technology. I originally sort of looked into running an e-commerce brand myself as a sort of D2C brand, but then my heart was never fully in it, if I'm perfectly honest. In terms of my heart's always in technology. I love software, and so I wanted to build a business model that was built in the sort of digital SaaS space. And one of the frustrations I had when building my e-commerce businesses was setting up the website, right? It takes a lot of time, effort. I'm not a web developer, and so it was, I always found it very frustrating, time consuming, when at the end of the day, I wanted to more focus on my products and the customer and the day-to-day. So I ended up sort of getting a team together and starting to make the product that we have today.
So who'd be your ideal customer, Ricky?
So our ideal customer is, as I said, sort of a male or female, 25 to 44, small to medium business owner, usually, a self-run business at home or in a warehouse with a few staff, where they sell products to customers in their specific country, that are selling products that they're passionate about. So a lot of our customers, in sort of the beauty niche, the fashion niche, the outdoors, sports, as an example, gym. So usually business owners that are, they love whatever niche of products that they promote, and that they wanted to build a business around it.
Right. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now in your own business?
The challenge that we are actually facing is, obviously during the pandemic, there was a massive surge in customers coming our way. And now what we're seeing is a bit of a trend, because, customers are tightening their belts. So what we're sort of seeing now is that still getting plenty of customers and growing quite well. It's just that the customers expect more for the same amount now, basically, because they're tightening their belts. The hardest thing they're sort of finding is sort of meeting all their expectations to sort of tailor to all their businesses. Because, the financial situation within the world right now. But then at the same time, also further updating our tools to be more granular is one of the things that we're working really hard on to sort of, that's the thing that I'm finding the most challenging right now, but we're making good roads towards that.
Right. What's the biggest learning you've had since being a business owner?
Time management. By far, to me, it would be, well, if I were to sort of categorize the two things that would come to me is time management. 24 hours in the day, I used to feel like that's plenty of time when I used to work my 9-to-5 corporate job, where you could come home and disconnect. But running a business yourself, you get other liberties, of course, but a number of liberties sort of disappear, and it makes you realize 24 hours in the day is quite short, is one of the things that I find for me. And then obviously as well, managing staff and expectations and sort of supporting, guiding them, nurturing them, and all the sort of nuances, I guess, that come with running a company.
What are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome in your journey in business?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, there's been the main ones that would come to mind. I guess I sort of touched on it. And I'll touch on it again. Would be, as I said, sort of that work-life balance instead of time management. Trying to have a bit of a life outside of work. The first couple of years was especially just sort of very, very challenging. I'll be honest, because you're trying to build the foundations of the business and really solidify them to keep the business operational while also reinvesting into the business and reinvesting into staff, building a good culture. Those are the things that I found the most difficult. Sorry, not to be rude. Can you repeat the question? I think I went off topic a little bit there.
Not a problem. So what are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome on your journey in business?
Oh, yeah. So, sort of going on that a bit more, as I said, sort of the time management, and then sort of managing finances. At the end of the day, the challenge of meeting staff expectations, supporting our clients and providing a great product, that's a great thing to say and all, and that's always what we want to try and achieve and do, everyone in business. But at the end of the day, also managing the fact that you are a CEO and that your job also is to manage the finance of the company and make sure it's always in a strong, healthy position. That juggling act is one of the things that I'm always finding is where to allocate resources that's the most beneficial to the business. At the same time, whenever you do that, you're pleasing some people, and then at the same time, you're disappointing some others. So like I'm always finding that the juggling act about where your priorities are in business, about where to allocate budget, is one of the things that I find, an important part of being a business owner, but I do find it very personally challenging at times.
What have you learned about yourself during your journey?
That's an excellent question. I like these questions. Thank you. The thing that I learned about myself the most is that, well, for one, I feel that I was, for me personally, sort of suited for business. I learned that my personality, I guess, is sort of suited for business, and I sort of thrive off the challenge of business. That the most rewarding thing I've gotten from it, from being in a corporate environment as an employee to now in my position, was more that I just really enjoy the challenge. Like I enjoy challenge, and I sort of persevere on challenge. That there's always pros and cons, and especially as a CEO, you encounter a lot of negatives. I quite thrive off a lot of the negatives. Not that I seek them, but I very much enjoy it. And I enjoy, the other thing is that that business forces you to, in my eyes, business forces you to evolve as a person. That you can't just sort of put your sort of head in the sand. In my eyes, business has a funny way of sort of pushing your head out of the sand. Otherwise, unfortunately, things won't work out how you want. And so that's sort of how I guess I would answer. I know a little bit vague and
not at all. So, Ricky, how do you hold yourself accountable?
That's a great question. So for me, I hold myself accountable through a number of methods. I'm very big on, to me, transparency and accountability. I believe as a business owner that you have a strong responsibility to make sure that the company always runs for not just yourself, but obviously more importantly for your staff, for their happiness and well-being and their families. So I have a very big process on this personally, where every month I have a CEO meeting where staff join and they can ask questions. It's all anonymous, as an example, and I answer them live and also answer any questions they sort of have live. I think that's a really important thing because I make plenty of mistakes, and I'm like any human being, we're going to make mistakes. And I also make sure I have really good management within the company who openly critique and correct me on things that they feel that I might be going in the wrong direction, or provide suggestions. I'm always, I intentionally hire people like that are very open and honest about their feedback about, hey, Ricky, hold on, you're trying to try this, but if we try this, this might be better or something, or, hey, I think that this might actually have a negative impact on the company. Can we explore these other options? And I very much like that, because like anything, a company is built from the people, not from one person in my eyes. So I very much try and make sure to surround myself with people who are not afraid to, tell me where I'm wrong, where I'm making mistakes, and look at opportunities to be better.
Excellent. Fantastic. So where do you find inspiration from each day?
Well, frankly, my wife and my daughter always inspire me. Very, very fortunate to have them, and that they inspire me every day to sort of work harder, provide better for my family, my life, my well-being as well, my friends, but obviously my colleagues as well. That they inspire me a lot, because I speak to them regularly. I find it quite inspiring to hear their enthusiasm, and I love hearing other people's enthusiasm and excitement about various things. It sort of gets me very excited myself. And by speaking a lot to them, I'm always learning from them. I love, as I sort of said earlier, being challenged and learning in business. By speaking to them, and like I'm one person, I have staff in multiple different specialities, learning about all of their very unique skills, I find is very amazing, and I feel very privileged, honestly, to be in that position.
Fantastic. Do you have any favorite quotes or sayings or things you've read that keep you focused?
Yeah, so I read a number of books. I'm not a fast reader by any means. I'm a pretty slow reader. But I'm very bad with remembering quotes, if I would be perfectly honest with you. But the thing that sort of, I guess, collectively, one of the books that really resonated with me is, I've forgotten the author's name, but it's a book called Good to Great. And what the book sort of exemplifies, if I'm not being rude, by chance, have you heard of the book?
I have, absolutely, yeah, very much so, yeah.
The book Good to Great, to me really resonated with me, where in terms of, a company, the difference between a good and a great company is not just its revenue, it's literally the people within their company, the culture. And to me, just the whole emphasis on that, I guess, level 1 to 5 individuals within a company, that level 1 there's level 1 people, level 5 people are the people you want to have across your company, where they understand the big picture, they're open, honest, transparent, accountable, always looking for opportunity. And so like reading that book just was like exceptionally enjoyable for me. So I know that's not really a saying, but that book was just so I've read it a couple of times, and I really enjoyed it, just because it taught me that how important it is that it's easy to go and employ someone and put a posting up and find someone, but finding someone who goes above and beyond, that really takes his or her work very seriously, has a lot of pride in their work, and just gets the picture and really wants to make something great, not just for themselves, but for the greater good, is something that I very much relate to, and I think is very important.
Yeah. Have you written any other books by James Collins, of course, wrote Good to Great?
Yeah, I have. I think I've got like 3 or 4 of his books, but again, because I'm terrible with the names, like there's Good to Great. I have them in my library, but I can't remember them for the life of me. All speaking about different, because I think he has about 6 books, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think I've read 4 to date. I have like 8 business books I'm slowly getting through that'll take me years, but they're all fantastic books. Sort of, I really like how, again, it's not just subjective. He's looking at, top companies that are on the stock exchange, and actually sort of breaking it down to more analytical, sort of data driven, I guess I would say more. And that's what I thought was really fantastic, because it feels something that's actually tangible and actionable that I can do as well.
Right. What would you say to someone thinking of going into business?
Yeah, great question as well. I really like these. Thank you. To me, the first thing I always look at in business is like, one of the things that I think really allowed me to succeed over the long term was having that the key long-term vision in mind. And what I mean by that is that, you know, one of the first things I did was speak to my accountant and get his advice. And, you know, speaking not as a financial advisor, but just, you know, his experience with other people, that, you know, when you go into business, expect that, to me, I don't define you having a solidified business until 2 years down the line, because you're going to go through a lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges, a lot of great times, and then met by a lot of really difficult times. And, you know, and part of what the real difficulty starting a business is, you know, most startup businesses, they unfortunately don't succeed for an infinite number of reasons. But one of the main correlating factors is a couple of things. Is one, a lot of people go into business with another individual, and that, you know, sounds good and all to start with, but, you know, you've probably heard of cases, read things like this too, where it all sort of starts fizzling out, because when times get rough, that's when you start to see, you know, those relationships start to tear. So I always sort of, you know, very much recommend know that when you're going into business with someone, that when times are tough, that person is going to be someone by your side, not someone that's going to be, you know, causing conflict, and vice versa, right? Because it's very stressful. And then the other part is, you know, money. To me, one of the things that I did when I started business is, the first, I had this vision, this dream, and that's all great and all, but at the end of the day, you need money to achieve that. And so the thing that I very much did was like, well, look, that's where I'm very lucky with my wife, that she was very supportive with that, where I was working a full-time job, but also then starting this business after hours. So I was working a lot of hours, collectively about 18 hours a day between my full-time work and this, to sort of learn the skills, build that foundation, go through all the incredible challenges that comes with it. And then, you know, hopefully have that, that time where it actually gets to the point where I could leave my job and so on, which I was able to, fortunately, of course. And so, like, that's one of the things, is that managing finance and having that very long-term view, because that, you know, I've even witnessed a number of people that go into business and they, I couldn't do it personally, because I think it's too much of a risk in my eyes, because I'm very risk averse, but where they have this great dream, this great ambition, and I think that's great, and they leave their current position to start this business, this dream. And the reality is that business is expensive, it takes time, yeah, and you know, if you take money out of the equation, business would be no problems really. But
absolutely,
you know, that juggling act, especially those first 2 years, that juggling act of time management and then money management, because you're not just paying for your business for the day-to-day, you're paying for your personal day-to-day, your own expenses, they'll still keep coming in. And so to me, having that very long-term view of at least 2 years, because you want to go through at least like one tax time as well, because so many people make a good amount of money, but then, you know, the government's going to come along and take a good bit of that as tax and stuff as well, and other miscellaneous expenses that come into it while managing your time. It's the first 2 years is to me just a huge learning experience, if I'm honest with you.
So Ricky, if you started your business again, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I mean, again, I really love this. To me, the biggest thing that I feel was the number one thing that I believe that I made a mistake in, from my perspective, was who I went into business with. You know, like I'm fortunate that, you know, we're able to now part ways amicably and respectfully and stuff, but it did cause a lot of stress for both parties involved, and various issues that delayed potential growth in the company, and a lot of just things. And so to me, if I were to start again, I would make sure that I would be the only one going into business myself entirely from the get-go, because now I have the confidence and skills that I could easily do that myself. Back then, I partly went into business because you know, I also thought it was a good idea to have a business partner help support and enrich the business, someone with different skills and perspective. And that all started good, but as soon as sort of the difficulties, the true difficulties of business came around, which comes knocking on that door, that's when you start to see those cracks and those tears start to come into it. So that was my experience.
What would you say to your 18-year-old self?
if anyone's ever wondering, I was never a drinker. I never really went out clubbing. I've always been a bit of a nerd anyway. But to my 18-year-old self, I would say, get started in business. To me, and what I mean by that is get started, not expecting that I'm going to be starting a website and then I'm in business. No. It would be just starting, and going on things like YouTube, listening to podcasts like this as an example, and just sort of learning from other people's experiences, what he or she or they went through to achieve the success that they're presently at. Because, I've only been in about 3 years. If I had started back then, a lot of my dreams and aspirations that I'm still hoping to achieve, I reckon I would have already gotten there. And so, when I was 18, I would definitely say, look, just don't expect to achieve profit, revenue, or anything. Just go in with the perspective of, I would look at it like, I've never personally been to university, so I'm not, one to talk or anything, but I look at it as the same as, when you go to further education, whatever that might look like, you're investing in yourself. So when you're 18, go in with the perspective of, look, I'm going into learn these skills, invest in myself, whatever that might look like, buying some things, a book, in some courses, and just going from the perspective of what you're doing right now is learning. And like with university and college and so on and so forth is, you're looking at 3 years to learn the sort of foundational skills to help you in that specific career path. And it's sort of the same in business, that you're looking at that couple of 2 to 3 years of learning and failing, and just going with that process of learning, failing, until, you do get to a point where you are successful in your own right.
Yeah. Have you ever had a mentor or a business coach or executive coach?
Personally, no. All of my teachings, if I'm perfectly honest with you, have all just come from just online research. Okay. Because I'm a bit of a nerd, I just go on things like YouTube, or I just look at threads online. And my approach has probably been an approach, and I probably wouldn't recommend it for most people. It works for me. I go in with the approach of, I just want to fail. I know it sounds really stupid, but what I do is, when I'm looking at wanting to doing something new, I'm like, well, look, I'm just going to go and do it. I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to fail, but a failure in my eyes isn't ever a failure if you learn something from it. So the approach I've done in business that works for me is, that's why I've never gone to university or anything. It's theory. I get tired when I'm sort of sitting in those a lot of the time. So for me, what I know my strength is that I just love to work. And so for me, I just go in with the perspective of, all right, well, this is something I want to do. This is something I want to try. I'm probably getting 99% likely to fail, but I'm going to learn something that I feel is going to help me over the long term. So that's sort of my approach sort of to that, if that makes sense.
That's very widespread, actually, Ricky. It's something that I coach is fail fast.
Oh, is it?
So you get out, fail fast, and then get on, because that's how you learn. And if you're not pushing the boundaries, you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
So you always need to be pushing the boundaries, looking for the next opportunity to develop. And often it's going to be wrong, or you'll fail in part of it, not outrightly necessarily, but that's how you learn.
And you're absolutely right. And then what happens is, like for me personally, is those accumulation of failures, those tiny little failures. At the same time, the opposite end is those accumulation of learnings sort of accumulate into something that becomes truly amazing, where you can look at something and actually be able to do it off the top of your head. That's sort of been my experience anyway.
Yep. No, that's been great. Thank you. Really appreciate it, Ricky. Thanks for your time.